In the endless blue of the Caribbean, rum wasn't celebration, it was salvation. Long ago, when the vast ocean stretched endlessly beneath open skies, those who sailed as pirates made a choice each day. A choice that had nothing to do with celebration or wild abandon, but rather with something much quieter and more essential: the simple matter of staying alive on the water. When we allow our minds to wander toward thoughts of pirates, we might imagine scenes of laughter echoing across wooden decks, of conflict and competition, of rum flowing freely like the very waves beneath their ships. Stories and films have painted these images in bright, dramatic colors, but if we settle in and listen closely to the truth, the real reason pirates turned to rum was something altogether different, something rooted not in joy, but in the gentle struggle for survival, in the quiet dynamics of human nature, and in the slow, inevitable changes that time brings to all things. By the time we reach the end of this journey together, you'll come to understand why rum became such an integral part of life at sea, how it offered a kind of safety in uncertain times, how it gradually took its toll, and why this single drink quietly shaped the course of pirate history in ways that still echo softly through time. The world that pirates inhabited was a place of unique challenges, and to truly appreciate what rum meant to them, we must first ease ourselves into understanding what their daily existence was really like. Being a pirate wasn't the romantic adventure of freedom and treasure that we might imagine from our comfortable distance. Instead, it was a life marked by persistent hunger, by illness that crept through cramped quarters, by fear that settled in during long nights, and by a kind of boredom that accumulated like water in the hull. All of this layered upon itself for months that stretched into years. These sailors lived aboard wooden vessels that creaked and swayed for weeks at a time, sometimes even years, with no relief. There were no ways to keep food fresh and cool, no trained medical practitioners to tend to the sick, no clean spaces where meals could be prepared safely. Just tight, confined areas where too many bodies pressed together, where heat bore down relentlessly, where rats scurried in the darkness, and where the ocean itself seemed to pound against the wooden walls day after day, night after night, without pause. And when we consider what troubled these sailors most deeply, we find that it wasn't the threat of enemies on the horizon. It was something much more fundamental and ever-present. Fresh water seems like such a simple thing, doesn't it? Something we reach for without thinking, something that flows easily and keeps us alive. But out there on the endless sea, this basic necessity became something quite different. It became a source of constant worry and genuine danger. The water that pirates carried with them was stored in large wooden barrels, and after just a few peaceful days of sailing, this water would begin its quiet transformation into something unsafe. It would slowly take on a green tint, developing a slippery film across its surface. Small creatures and tiny worms would find their way into it, making it their home. Bacteria would spread through it like whispers, invisible but present. Eventually, it would begin to emit an odor of decay, of something that had passed beyond freshness into something else entirely. The sailors had a name for this spoiled water. They called it dead water, and the name felt appropriate. When someone drank from this contaminated supply, their body would respond with severe distress, with painful digestive troubles that left them weak, with waves of nausea that emptied their stomachs, with a growing weakness that made even simple tasks feel impossible, with infections that could spread and worsen. Some sailors, peacefully and quietly, would pass away from nothing more than drinking water that had gone bad. Perhaps the most difficult part of this situation, the part that must have felt almost cruel, was that these pirates found themselves surrounded on all sides by endless water, the ocean stretching to every horizon, and yet they had nothing clean and safe to drink. So gradually, thoughtfully, they began to seek another option, another way forward. This is the part of the story that surprises many people when they first hear it, but it makes sense when we allow ourselves to understand it fully. Alcohol, in its various forms, proved to be safer than water for these ocean travelers, not because it was nourishing or healthful in itself, but simply because it resisted the decay that claimed water so quickly. You see, alcohol has this gentle property of discouraging bacteria from growing, of creating an environment where those tiny organisms cannot thrive. It remains stable and unchanged over long stretches of time. It doesn't become a home for worms or other small creatures. This is why sailors from many nations found themselves drinking alcohol every single day. It was simply the most reliable way to stay hydrated without becoming ill. But as they discovered through experience, not all alcoholic drinks worked equally well for life at sea. Beer and wine were familiar beverages in Europe, drinks that people had enjoyed for generations. But when these drinks were brought aboard ships for long voyages, they revealed their limitations quite clearly. Beer would begin to spoil relatively quickly, losing its qualities and becoming unpleasant. Wine would gradually turn sour, developing sharp, unpleasant tastes. Both of these drinks also required quite a bit of storage space, taking up room that could be used for other necessary supplies. On voyages that stretched for weeks or months across open water, beer and wine simply didn't last long enough to be practical. So pirates, always adapting to the realities they faced, needed to find something with more strength, something that didn't cost as much, something that could withstand the heat and the passage of time without losing its essential properties. And slowly, naturally, one particular drink emerged as the answer to all of these needs. Rum was created from sugar cane, or more precisely, from molasses, which was simply the thick, dark syrup left behind after sugar was extracted from the cane. The Caribbean islands, warm and tropical, were filled with plantations where sugarcane grew tall and abundant. This meant that rum was always nearby for pirates sailing in these waters. It was inexpensive to obtain, straightforward to produce, easy to replace when supplies ran low, and available in practically every port where pirates might find themselves. Rum possessed a remarkable stability that other drinks lacked. Unlike beer, which would spoil, or wine, which would sour, rum simply remained itself, unchanged and reliable. It could be stored for months without losing its character or becoming unsafe. It endured the heat of tropical days and the constant movement of the ship without degrading. A single barrel of rum could last throughout a long voyage, providing a steady, dependable resource. Rum also addressed the practical matter of space, which was always at a premium on these wooden vessels. Because rum was much stronger than beer or wine, pirates didn't need to store nearly as much of it to achieve the same effect. More rum could fit into less space, which meant more room remained for food, for weapons, for whatever treasures or goods they might acquire. On a ship where every inch mattered, where careful planning meant the difference between success and failure, this efficient use of space translated directly into better odds of survival. But perhaps the most important quality of rum, the one that truly made it indispensable, was its ability to make contaminated water safer to drink. This wasn't just a pleasant side effect. This was crucial to survival. Pirates would take their rum and mix it carefully with water, creating a blend that served a vital purpose. This mixture would work to kill the bacteria that thrived in stored water. It would make dirty, questionable water safer for human consumption. It would reduce the likelihood of disease spreading through the crew. This drink, this careful combination, became known by the name grog, and it became a staple of maritime life. Without rum to mix with their water, many pirates simply wouldn't have survived the long journeys they undertook across vast stretches of ocean. Over time, gently and gradually, Rum wove itself into the fabric of daily life aboard these ships. It wasn't just a beverage that appeared at certain times. It became part of the rhythm and routine that gave structure to each day. Most pirates would drink rum at various points throughout their waking hours. In the morning as they began their day's work, during the long hours of labor and watchfulness, and again at night before trying to find sleep in the noisy, crowded spaces below deck. This regular consumption of rum served several purposes in their difficult lives. It helped to ease the soreness in muscles that had been worked hard day after day. It helped them to set aside their fears, at least temporarily, the fears that came with facing unknown dangers and uncertain futures. It offered an escape from the boredom that settled in during long stretches with nothing to do but wait and watch the horizon. It helped them find sleep despite the constant creaking of wood, the sounds of water against the hull, and the presence of so many others in such close quarters. Life on the ocean was marked by repetition and hardship, day after day of the same challenges and discomforts, and rum made it all just a bit easier to bear, made it possible to continue moving forward. So the next time you encounter an image of a pirate raising a cup of rum high in the air, allow yourself to see past the surface of that gesture. Don't picture only a party, only celebration and abandon. Instead, picture a person making a difficult choice, weighing limited options, choosing what seems like the lesser evil in a situation with no perfect answers. Choosing between dirty water that would make them sick immediately and strong alcohol that would preserve their health now but damage it gradually over time. Choosing between feeling their fear fully and finding some numbness, some distance from the constant anxiety of their dangerous life. Choosing between survival in the present moment and accepting unknown damage that would come later, when later arrived.